You're now listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.
Hello, Rockies. This is Sarah Jane Maroney, your host for Engage the Rockies, your go-to podcast concerning local and state issues for Colorado. This week, we are joined by Sarah Ball Johnson, who serves as City Clerk for Colorado Springs, Colorado. With over 17 years' experience in election administration, she has played a significant role in managing municipal elections and maintaining city records. Her career began in Kentucky, where she worked with the State Board of Elections and served as executive director for 7 years before moving to Colorado Springs. Sarah holds a degree from Transylvania University and continues to contribute to the field of election administration through her leadership in Colorado Springs. She's conducted all municipal elections in Colorado Springs for the past 8 years. Her responsibilities include overseeing the redistricting of the city councils, managing the city's business licensing program, and preparing meeting agendas and minutes. And we speak to her about the redistricting specifically. Hello, Rockies. This is Sarah Jane Maroney, your host for the Engage the Rockies podcast. And today we are talking to Sarah Johnson, City Clerk for Colorado Springs. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on. We've got a lot going on around here.
Just a little busy.
So redistricting is the latest. Tell us a little bit about that and how that works here.
Sure. So our city charter, Colorado Springs is a home rule city, and our city charter requires the city clerk to take a look at the districts, the city council districts, every 4 years, and to redraw them in the even year before the odd year election. So our municipal election is April 1st, 2025. I have a good slogan. It's no joke, vote in the April 1st election.
Okay.
Great timing.
Nice.
And on that ballot will be our 6 city council districts. So in our city, we have 9 total seats, 3 are at large, and 6 are district based. And so what we've been working on this year, since April of this year, is taking a look at those 6 districts and altering the boundaries, tweaking, in essence, those boundaries to help balance out our population across the city so that each city council member is representing as close to the same amount as you can possibly get while keeping all the communities of interest, et cetera, together.
That sounds like quite a task.
It is.
How long have you been doing this?
So we started at the beginning of April.
No, I mean you as you've been city clerk for 12 years, is that right?
So 12 years. So I've been the Colorado Springs city clerk for 12 years, a little over 12 years actually. I started in June of 2012. So this was my 4th redistricting process with the city. And so in 2012 or 2011 and 10 and 11, the city voters voted to change up our makeup of council, still have 9 seats, but change it to the current 6 districts, 3 at large. And so I started with redrawing the council districts from 4 to 6 back in 2012. And we've maintained that makeup of council the rest of the time.
And so this election, you said there are 6 seats, but some are at large and some are districts?
So this April, it's just the 6 district seats. So the mayor and the 3 at large run on the same cycle, and they just ran in 2023. Mm-hmm. And so this time it is truly just the 6 district members who will be elected.
And how does that work if they don't know what the district is before it's finalized, or what's the timeline on that?
Right. So the city charter does say that I have to finish the process by no earlier than the 1st of November, no later than the 1st of December. And that I assume the reasoning was so that we can get these districts. And so the candidates who want to file for next year will be running in these newly drawn districts. And like I said, it was just a tweak. We ended up moving 25 precincts around the city, and we have well over 200 in the city as a whole.
So how many citizens roughly would that
It's
affect?
roughly around 26,000 registered voters. For example, of course, we redistrict based on population. So everybody from the newborn to the octogenarian is included in that. But as far as voters, it's about 26,000 voters who will soon receive a postcard from me saying your district has changed. Here's your new district.
Just for those that have changed,
Just for
obviously.
those that have changed, right?
And are there areas of Colorado Springs that have never changed or that have all other
There,
than
there are, as anyone who's familiar with the city knows, we're growing really fast, but we're growing predominantly in the north and the east. We have some recent annexation discussions going on that will kind of change that to more southern direction on population growth. But for this particular cycle, north and east really were growing very fast, and everybody else needed to shift. Because on the west side, we're pretty built out on the west side because we're bounded by the mountains, and you can't go too far. And then it's really just that Interquest, Wolf Ranch area, and then of course the Banning Lewis Ranch, east of Powers, basically all the way up to the city boundaries. Is really growing quite fast. Those two districts, that's District 1 and District 6, and those districts were too large when we looked at the population estimates. District 2 was 8,000 over what we would like to have, and District 6 was 5,000 over, and some of the other districts were a little under. So the shifting of the 25 precincts was really to try to lessen the population in our far north and far east, and kind of spread that to some of those in the center of the city.
And so when you talk about precinct, is that how we would normally vote in a Colorado
Right.
state election or federal election?
They are. So the voting precincts are determined by the county clerk, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, pursuant to state law. There's a series of things they have to follow to create those. So a voting precinct is the building block of any redistricting map. It is the small pieces that you're going to move around from one territory to another. And my focus was to keep those in whole and not try to split them, unduly split those precincts, because it is much easier to conduct an election when you don't have that. And people tend to know their voting precinct. Mind you, a voting precinct was really important back when we had in-person voting in precincts. But since we're a vote by mail state, you vote when you get the ballot. But we still use voting precincts as our building blocks, just those small territories within the larger district boundaries. And this is the same for congressional district drawing, state house legislative seats, county commissioners, or in our case, city council. Those are our building blocks.
So you hail from Kentucky or spent many years in Kentucky?
I do, no, born and raised in Kentucky. And so I moved out here in 2012.
So is that the way that Kentucky works? I was reading some interesting information about county size, and it was actually Kentucky. They said that originally, way back, you needed to be a horseback ride away from the place that you could vote.
And they still have 120 counties in Kentucky, and that was built upon the premise was you needed to be, and I don't remember exactly, but you're in essence so many hours of a trip from the state capital. Is how they sort of measure that, or center points within the state.
Right.
That's why they have 120.
And we have 64 in Colorado. Is that correct?
Right. You have 64. And Kentucky has 120. Some are really tiny, and the big metropolitan are very large. But yeah, there's 120 of those.
Wow. So, but going back to, and this is where my question came from, you're using the voting precinct that as your sort of building blocks. Is that a standard across all of America?
It is a standard across all of America that's your basic building block, because those are defined territories based upon procedures, number of registered voters. It varies from state to state, but that really is across the nation your puzzle pieces that you move around. It is very standard that you do that. And it also helps because you're breaking a large territory into smaller bits and pieces. So when you need to move something to balance population, you're usually moving moving smaller increments to get what you need to do to balance that.
Do those precincts ever change?
They do. They do change. There is a formula that here in Colorado is used to determine those size. And so the county clerk does adjust those periodically. It doesn't happen every year, for example. They are also just monitoring registered voter size and following the state prescriptions. And how you draw a precinct does vary across the nation.
So, and what was interesting to me is you said that when you're redistricting the city of Colorado Springs, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. This is very confusing in terms of, I mean, did you always want to be a county clerk when you were a little kid?
No, I did not. I did not. I just knew I wanted to go into the business world. So I was a business major in college and volunteered for a U.S. Senate campaign between junior and senior year, and then kind of got the political environment bug, and then interned with that same U.S. senator, and then ended up going to state government, started working in the Kentucky State Board of Elections, and stayed there and moved up to eventually being executive director for a number of years and working for a secretary of state.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you do know what you're talking about. So in terms of all these little blocks, when I pull up a map, I always see all this color and then I see these weird little gray patches.
Yeah, so when you look at the city of Colorado Springs boundaries, you will notice some little, particularly with our new map, you'll notice some gray areas that are surrounded. So we've color coded our districts just to make them easier to see what's District 1, what's District 6, etc. You will see some gray areas within there. Some are large chunks, some are small chunks. Those are unincorporated El Paso County, meaning that territory is not. It's bounded by the city of Colorado Springs all around it, but that specific territory is not within the city. For basically, Cimarron Hills is probably the big, large chunk of land, and that is not within the city of Colorado Springs. Like I said, it's surrounded on all sides by the city, but those residents do not pay city taxes, don't get city services, etc. That's probably the biggest populated area that is not within the city. Some of the smaller ones, predominantly, most of those are predominantly in the upper north east area, predominantly, and to the south also. But it's mostly on the eastern side of town. And those are just over time, those pieces were not annexed into. As they start to get developed, if you follow city council at all, you'll see annexation requests from developers or homeowners in some rare cases wanting to be annexed to get city services. Particularly developers are doing it so that they can get city services, mostly utilities, get onto CSU utilities. But yeah, when you do look at the map, you do have a lot of gray areas. I call the 6th district, which is east of Powers. I tend to call that my Swiss cheese district because that's what it looks like in so many places because of those gray areas.
Okay. And so if you're redistricting every 4 years, is this just you decide randomly, or is there like, how do citizens get involved in that?
So we do have a citizen committee that is appointed by city council that is to aid the city clerk in getting citizen input, but the charter specifically directs the city clerk to redraw the districts and determine the districts. So they are not voted on by the mayor or city council. It's a unique, I think, a unique element of city code that a politician is not approving these districts, up or down. So that is what I do. But I do have a citizen committee, one for each district, and then one person at large that's appointed, but through application process. And they help me get that citizen outreach. So we do a meeting in every single district, and in-person and virtual meetings in all the districts. We do a lot of communication. This time we did a lot of so social media ads. Targeting, people across the city, particularly in districts that we know needed to change quite a bit, particularly those east and north districts that were shrinking, so to speak. So that, and then we just do lots of media. We do press releases. We do any earned media we can get on that. This time, like I said, we did buy some ads on that. We also post on our website a lot of information. We also put surveys out there. We got quite a lot of comments from citizens across the city, guiding us on what was important to them. Are our communities of interest, your neighborhoods, keeping them together? Are they important to you? More important than using a geographic boundary like a 4-lane highway or something. And what resoundingly the citizens that responded said, we want neighborhoods to stay together as much as possible. And so that's why in the final product, you'll notice not all of the districts have the exact same population numbers, because we really put an emphasis on keeping neighborhoods together, uniting neighborhoods in some cases that have been split in the past by 2 districts. We've united them into 1 district this time. But as you can imagine, not everybody can stay together because we
Sure.
do have to
And
balance that population.
and do you ever have someone ringing you up and saying, I needed to be in this district and I'm not?
We will have that. We tend to hear that more when we mail out the ballots, because the April 1st election, you're only going to be able to vote for the council member in that your residence resides in. So we do hear that a lot. I want to vote for this person over this person. And you have to explain, well, you don't live in that territory, so you have to vote for the person that you reside in. So we do hear that.
Do you think that that comes as a surprise? You said most people know that their precinct numbers, but how many people know their?
Some degree it does, especially coming off this presidential election where everybody was hyper focused on the president, and then to
Mhm.
follow really quickly with or any election, quite frankly, that follows a presidential election. It is difficult to get the word out, but we'll be using all of our media partners and our nonprofit, get out the vote efforts, candidates themselves, to try to get people to understand there is an election. We, of course, don't have the tons of media like you do in a presidential. So there is some fatigue after that long ballot that we had in November, but this will be a really short ballot. So hopefully we'll be able to get some interest, and hopefully we'll have some candidates who file and will actually generate that buzz that we need to put the focus on the election.
And so are you in charge of then ballots and things like this as well?
We do that, right. We will be sending out the ballots from our office. March 7th is the date to send those ballots out to people. You just need to get them back to us by April 7th. It's an all-mail ballot election again. And hopefully we can get people to vote and specifically run. We need some good candidates in these 6 districts. And so candidate filing begins December 31st and ends January 21st. So the city's election website has a ton of information, not only on the redistricting process and how we did what we did, and what we considered throughout the entire project, but also on the upcoming election. And that's coloradosprings.gov/elections.
So a Republican or Democrat could go ahead and run in this election and still have a possibility?
Right. So we run nonpartisan elections, meaning you're not running as a Democrat or a Republican or an unaffiliated. You're simply running as you yourself. You are you. We don't designate on the ballot what you are as far as political affiliation, and you don't tell us that. We are 100% nonpartisan. So we don't have not the partisan information as far as individual voters. We don't know it. We don't use it. All of our election workers and anything you will see from us will not have anything about party affiliation in it. It is a common question we do get from citizens. I want to know what they are. And we explain that we are nonpartisan. That is not a factor in our election. Candidates are free under the First Amendment to say what their affiliation is if they wish to, but it will not be anything you'll see on the ballot or any of the official city communications in that respect, which is a big difference coming off of this last election where that was such a big factor. But our election is strictly apolitical. We do not know from our perspective, and your ballot will not indicate that.
And how does that work in terms of, we had a previous conversation with the county clerk, and for adjudication purposes and things like this and checking signatures, that's just done by your office?
It's done by judges. So we hire election judges, and 90% of them work the county elections. So they will have worked last November. So they're seasoned judges that know the rules on and how the process works. So it's just two individuals who are reviewing and doing those and processing your ballots. Again, we're taking party affiliation and the partisan concept completely out of any municipal election. All municipal elections in the state of Colorado, and quite frankly, mostly national, are considered nonpartisan.
And how long does a city council member serve?
So they serve 4-year terms. And just as the mayor and the at-large council members, the district members, again, will serve a 4-year term.
Okay. So are you ready for this? You obviously just came off of a redistricting effort. Do you sleep through the night on the 1st of April? How does that work?
We do. It's stressful, but yeah, we are ready. We're gearing up for it. We're well on the path to be ready to get those candidates. We just need some people to file so that we have something to print on those ballots. But we are ready and excited to kick this off, and hopefully we'll have some energized candidates out there that want to run. And I applaud everyone who wants to run, because that is a major commitment to run for anything. Put your name out there. So hopefully we've got some people out there that are willing to do that across all 6 districts.
Awesome. Well, if someone were interested in finding out more about running as a candidate, or about which precinct they're in, or which district, if they happen to have been redistricted, they go to that government website?
Yes, coloradosprings.gov/elections. You can also go to govotecolorado.gov if you'd like to find out your current voter registration. And that will also tell you, that site will tell you what state house, rep, etc., including city council district also. And it'll tell you what your voter registration address is. It's really important that that is up to date, because we're going to be mailing a ballot to that address. So if you didn't double check it for November, or if you're going to be moving in between, particularly with our snowbirds, there is an ability for them to put a mailing address that's different. Because it's really important to know that your ballot is not forwardable by federal law. The post office cannot forward that ballot. So it's really important that everybody make sure your voter registration matches where you actually are, or where you want your ballot mailed to.
So someone could declare their residence in the city of Colorado Springs, but spend 6 months in Florida, and then their ballot would be mailed to Florida?
Correct. If come April 1st or March 7th through April 1st, if they are going to be at their winter residence outside of the city of Colorado Springs, they have the ability to get an absentee ballot or to put in a mailing address. It's their choice to do either. And that is something that's really important, because we do have people, that April is just right on the cusp of when they want to come back to Colorado Springs, but we're going to be mailing those ballots out March 7th. So where are you going to be March 7th? That's the address you need to make sure that we have. And you can do that by going to that website and changing it online, or contacting the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, and they can update that for you.
Awesome. Well, this has been super educational, Sarah. I really appreciate your time and helping us understand a little bit more about this sort of myriad of puzzle piece fixing and whatnot. It's exciting.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. And just people, please run. And if you're not going to run, which I understand, please vote.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you very much again, Sarah. Well, hopefully we'll have a conversation afterwards to see how it went.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.